Is sparring really that important? Or can you also be a world champion by not sparring at all? Is it bad for your health? Let me tell you my opinion on this whole topic that is back and forth on MMA Twitter all the time, especially since Sean Strickland won the world title. Hello and welcome to Bloodsport MMA.
Assalamu alaikum, Dagestan.
We all heard the stories about Sean Strickland doing the sparring only method.
We'll go to this fucking parking lot and we'll do the fucking man dance.
So only like 80% of his training is just sparring. Then you have Max Holloway who says he doesn't spar at all anymore. And now the fans or just MMA people are like, what should I do now? What is good? Is sparring bad? Is sparring good? How often? Like all these things. And I will give you my opinion. So sparring overall is 100% necessary if you want to be a fighter. Don't listen to anyone who says, and don't take Max Holloway as an example there, because Max Holloway sparred a lot until the point he didn't spar anymore. You cannot compare yourself to Max Holloway. You have to develop those fighting skills first. And it's very important that you know that hitting the pads, hitting the back is good, important. It's important to not just start your training career by just sparring. You have to learn the technique first, in my opinion. I always think first learn the basics, learn the technique a little bit appropriate, then go into sparring. Because otherwise you just start to spar, you throw all those weird shots, you develop bad habits in this regard, and it's hard to get that out of your system once you developed it during sparring and everything is burned into you. All your wrong punches, your hand down, all those things. So don't start to spar immediately when you start to train martial arts. But if, let's say, you know, hey, okay, I know the basics now, I want to fight in, I don't know, half a year, then spar. And try to spar at least, I would say, 2 times per week. Because sparring, especially at the beginning, it takes some time to get into the rhythm, to find your distance, to know how to react when someone punches you, to not just panic and everything. That's because it's totally normal at the beginning that it's weird.
That's fucking weird, huh?
So I think for every up-and-coming fighter, it's crucially important to spar. Sparring is a foundation that you 100% need, because otherwise you have no clue how it is to be in a fight, and once you get hit, you're like, oh my god, what's happening here? Punch is coming because the pad man doesn't really hit me back, and you know what I mean, the punching bag just stays there. Like, do sparring. That's very important. That's just for the first thing, because some people think, I'm not gonna spar at all, blah, blah, blah. If you are not competing, if you do not want to compete, then sparring becomes not crucial at all. Of course, it is important to be a better fighter, to get better at fighting, to not just have nicer punches on the back. To be a better fighter, it is important to spar. But what I would tell you 100%, and I stick to that 100%, if you are not an aspiring fighter, there is zero benefit in sparring hard. Because there are always some people like, don't be a pussy, spar hard, be a man. Like, I never got this. Like, if I don't plan to fight, I think if you're a fighter, if you want to fight, it's important to every now and then have hard sparring, just because it simulates a fight a little bit. It's full speed and everything. Then it's important every now and then, also not too often, every now and then, because it's just unnecessary brain damage otherwise. If you are not trying to be a professional fighter, there is no benefit for you in hard sparring. The only thing it gives you is brain damage. Because if you want to hit hard, go hit a back. Like, of course it feels nice to hit a person in his face, I get it. But I never hit someone hard in the face and I was like, oh my god, that felt so much better than when I punched them less hard, unless you have some complexes and you have a small dick or something, I don't know.
I'm half black from the belly button down.
I don't see a benefit at all in that. I think sparring, if you're not a fighter, should always be technical sparring. Of course, not just, Of course, you go a little bit harder, but not boom, all out hard sparring. Never the sparring where you try to knock each other out. As soon as it's that, it's just unnecessary brain damage for you, especially if you're not a professional fighter, and then you spar someone who's a professional fighter or whatever, and he will knock you the shit out of you. And that's just So unnecessary. You're not cool if you spar hard. You're not tougher if you spar hard. Nothing with that. But if you're a fighter or want to be a fighter, you need to spar hard every now and then. That's important. But I do believe that sparring, it really depends on how your sparring partners are. I think the most important thing about sparring is finding the right sparring partners. I'm not a fan of just going in some random gyms. At the beginning, maybe yes, because you have to get used to different styles and everything. And at the beginning, just go and just spar. Just go to whatever sparring session you can find, spar. If you want to be a fighter, just spar. But after some time, I don't think it's smart to just spar all the random peoples, because there's always some guys that just try, especially if you're an aspiring fighter, that just take pride in hurting you or trying to knock you out or whatever. And you don't need that in training, especially if it's not hard sparring. If you say it's normal sparring and they just say, yeah, normal sparring, you all know those guys. Yeah, normal sparring, and then they just come swinging out of nowhere. My favorite guys are those who always go light, and then out of nowhere, boom, boom, boom. Just so stupid and unnecessary. So in my opinion, the most important thing is, as soon as you're training since a while and you're an aspiring fighter and everything, find your sparring partners. Find a few guys in the gym that you always spar with, where you know, hey, we know how to spar each other. We know how hard we go in the normal sparring sessions, and then in the hard sparring sessions, it doesn't really matter who you take because everybody goes hard, right? But in normal sparring sessions, have your partners that you know, you can rely on them, that you will have a technical sparring session and you will actually benefit from it and learn, and not just take some more brain damage for nothing. You know what I mean? So that's very important, the quality of your training partners, of your sparring partners. But then, of course, once you're a professional fighter and once you fight 3 times per year, whatever, I do think that hard sparring then is not that important anymore. That's why I don't think Holloway doesn't spar at all. I think sparring is always important to at least do flow sparring or something, because otherwise you just lose your rhythm, lose your range and everything. That's so important, your timing and all those things. Not flow sparring like, as I said, normal sparring. But the hard sparring, in my opinion, after some time in your career, after you're so confident in your skills, is not important anymore. I think it's, especially if you do it often, it's just unnecessary brain damage. I don't say my opinion is the only opinion that's right. It's always an opinion, right? You will always have people that say, oh, you're just a pussy, go spar hard, be a man. Hey, if you want to be 45-year-old and don't remember your son's name or whatever, or talk like Nate Diaz or Stipe, hey, there you go, feel free, have fun.
I'm real good earlier, man. It's easy to tell. I'm gonna give it to him now, man. I just saw some weakness in that 3rd round, and then that 4th round when I caught him in the right hand. I don't know for you, but I felt like it was hurting him.
I think the Max Holloway is very smart to still spar, but spar lightly or normally, and do not spar hard. Do not try to take each other's head off. As a professional fighter, not as a beginner. As a beginner, you need to learn a lot and do hard sparring, do a lot of normal sparring and all those things. But there's never a benefit, even as a beginner, just go in there and just throw overhands with someone. Because that's what you often see with beginners when they spar hard. They just hook overhand. They just go like crazy at each other. It's like, what do you gain from that? Did you gain any head movement, any like technical abilities? No, it's just you lost brain cells and I don't know, like what's the benefit of that?
This is CTE Island.
It's always about how your training partner is and how you are. That's the most important thing in my opinion. Have quality training partners. Then every sparring is beneficial for you. But overall, summarized, I do believe sparring is important. I do not believe in the sparring only method. I do believe that it's important to have sparring mixed into your training sessions 2, maybe 3 times per week, depending on your level, depending on this and that. Every person is different. Every person needs a specific training regime. You cannot just say this is the A plan and works for everyone. Everyone is different. But my take is rather preserve your brain cells and do not get unnecessary damage by thinking you are tough. What is your opinion on that? Write it in the comments, guys. What do you think about the sparring topic? Write in the comments. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, guys. Would really appreciate that. And most importantly, that you don't get hurt in sparring. Get your sleep in. Until the next one, bye-bye. Bloodsport out.